Well, good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, September the 3rd here, and as I look at the pattern, especially as we view the satellite data, I have questions about the longevity of the pattern. And it's interesting just to watch the cloud features yesterday. We saw some pretty large storms that blew up here, well ahead of the main frontal boundary, which is coming around this deeper low that's going through Ontario today. We also saw some cloud cover and some much-needed rain getting into Tennessee and Kentucky. The first front, the one that's really delivered a lot of the colder weather we've seen for a while, has now cleared parts of Florida for the most part, and it's the west that started to put on an interesting show. There was some monsoonal thunderstorms throughout the Intermountain West, but once again we saw just numerous large thunderstorms that blew up here along the Sierra Nevada and then into Nevada. And if you weren't under those thunderstorms, you were dealing with obscured skies from smoke that both came from Canada and also smoke from some large fires in the west, some of the newest fires here in parts of Washington. I wanted to take a closer look at those. Just playing through the afternoon yesterday, we can see these smoke plumes really get going again. And it's impressive to say the least when you have this much wildfire smoke getting into the lower atmosphere. There was a neat feature on this. I always like to point these out, but if you take a look right here, all right, after having some pretty serious storms that went through producing a pretty good lightning show in parts of California, take a look at the storm right there, okay? It's on the kind of the eastern edge of the Central Valley, and it tried to throw up a decent updraft, and then its anvil got separated. So you see it floating off here. I love watching that. It's kind of a neat feature that we can see with some of our new high-resolution satellite data. But there's clearly a lot of smoke in the atmosphere, and the 48-hour forecast of where the smoke is going to go is just, again, giving us more evidence of the position of what this pattern is right now. So here's the deeper low going through Ontario. The frontal boundary is going to push that smoke from the west and from Canada straight down with it here. We're going to ask questions about how cold it's going to get, how strong the winds are going to be behind this thing, and if we have any moisture coming into the west to help clear out the stagnant pattern we've been in, drop the temperatures, and bring in some much needed rainfall into this area. Now, as I was watching this, I was noticed quite a bit of smoke is expected to go over Montana, and had a conversation last night with a friend of mine that is in Montana, and I thought I'd just show you kind of some of the functionality of the new website or the updated website that we've released. And we do plan on iteratively working on it, so things might just change slowly over time, especially with some of your suggestions. So again, agweather.com, you now land somewhere like this. And here's what I want to do. Let's go over to the local weather forecast, and I'm going to go to a spot in Montana that my friend Ben lives in. So I'm going to choose, I think you pronounce it Choteau, but as we do, click submit, and it's going to bring up all of the weather forecast data and a local radar for that. Now, the feature I want to show you is all the way at the end of these cards. So you can walk through these cards. In fact, I now hit the National Weather Service API so you can see their written forecast, which is a nice addition. I appreciate them allowing us to have those API limits increase so we can do this. And as we go all the way to the end, I want to look at solar. So what I do here is I hit the ERA 5 database. It's always got a 3-day lag, just so you're aware. So notice this goes up to August 31st. But every day it looks at the either the above average or below average amount of solar radiation, sunlight. And then I keep a running kind of cumulative anomaly. And it is quite interesting to take note that since the end of July, the cumulative anomaly has dropped significantly, indicating quite a bit of western U.S. smoke. And I think this is going to be a valuable addition to the forecast data which we put out here that you can take advantage of. So just one little feature I wanted to point out this morning. Okay, right now though, we can see we've got the heat advisories, the red flag warnings in place. We're going to talk more about strong winds coming through this area. But as I looked at this morning's map, I'll be honest, I expected to see the frost advisory coming out for this area and possibly for here as well as we think about where this pattern's taking us. Because some of the newest data from the National Digital Forecast Database has now given the risk of frost in a couple of areas. One coming up behind the first front, and the second here, this is a push of colder air coming afterward. I'll show you where that trough is going to originate from in just a few moments. So we've been concerned about this cooler weather coming through, and we better just take a look at the pattern that got us into this. So you remember, what was it, last week, I think, I talked a lot about the relationship of what goes on in the Bering Sea, which is here, and the downstream pattern, especially as we got blocked up recently since the end of August into this high over low setup. The jet stream just lost a lot of its westward momentum and became more north-south oriented. And it's been that, so this trough and this trough with the high to its north, which really just gets into Much of British Columbia, which has been breaking high temperature records with all this high pressure, has driven these troughs into place, right? And so that's going to be the pattern we're going to look for to break up as we go forward. What it's done to the surface pressure, though, look at this. This is what a high over low really looks like. There's your high pressure, there's your low pressure, so the circulation's going around like that here and like that there, and there's just a lot of higher atmospheric pressure in this area, while we see the remnants of the pressure signature of Aaron here. This is what's set us up with our temperature pattern, which has looked like this since that point in August. We have a lot of places here in the eastern half of the country that are having a top 5, maybe top 3 coldest such stretches of days since 1893. Again, this is August 21st to September 2nd. While, from the Willamette Valley to Columbia Basin, even Northern California, this has been record hot in the western part of the United States. Well, as we think this through, what has it also done to the precipitation pattern? That did get the southwest monsoon going, although we still see deficits right around the Four Corners. Although for the last almost 15, 20 days, we have seen large surges of moisture getting pretty far to the north here, and they've wrapped around. We've seen better storms through Wyoming, but they've come through parts of Colorado, and some of the Pacific moisture that's getting pulled into this has even been a part of the moisture that we've seen coming through Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma during that time frame as well. And don't forget, we had, Juliet that came through here, delivering some of the rainfall that we see down here into Southern California. But there's no mistaking, we've had a very dry stretch roll through this area of the country, and it's not just 14 days old. Some of it's over 40 days old. And I'll be quite interested to do this. I'm going to leave Champaign here in a little while, and I'm going to head up to northern Illinois to give a quick talk, and then I'm going to fly over to Omaha and drive to Lincoln tonight. And I want to see just the difference between the western Corn Belt and where I am. Because in Champaign, I was talking to our state climatologist, where I at least got a message from him about how dry it's been where I live. And since 1888, I believe the message was this is the 5th driest year on record for this area. So something just to consider here as we look forward. But here's the pattern. We are still, can you see it? There's the Bering Sea trough. There's the large ridge in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere that's going into Alaska. Here are these lows underneath it. And this is just supporting the depth of these larger troughs. And I've got my eye on this one for the first shot at colder air, and that one, which is going to be working its way in as the second shot. We have to include what's going on in the tropics here in a moment as well, especially this tropical system here, and something that's trying to brew over in the Atlantic as we figure out this pattern. But let's do temperatures first today. Mid temperatures this morning. Look at the heat in the west and how cool it is over here on the East Coast. But this is going to change pretty quickly as we go from Wednesday into Thursday as the front comes barreling through. Now, this map is made with the National Digital Forecast Database. In other words, this is the National Weather Service's, the way that they interpret all of the weather forecast data plus their intuition, right, their meteorological experience, to produce forecasts for minimum temperatures. And as we take note here, this is the first push of colder air. That's where the front will be tomorrow morning. And then we see Friday into Saturday. I told you there's a second round. And one of the reasons why my frost map keeps showing up here is that I contour and shade in gray on that map I showed you a moment ago, anything below 35. So that's why we start to see the risk here with the second wave coming through. But there is no doubt about it. We've got some chilly nights coming through as we work our way toward Sunday into Monday and Tuesday, while the west just stays so hot. Now, the model differences are pretty stark. I'm just going to look at one time period. This is tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. on Thursday. This is the upper Midwest view. And what you've got here is the temperature just after sunrise. And what I notice in the European model forecast is a lot of temperatures in the 40s. Could be a wind issue mixing the lower atmosphere, could be the moisture that the front brings through, but the European model is not trying to even drop this much into the 30s. Now, for those of you watching me that live in this area, let's put these models to the test. This is what we should do every day, because the GFS looks like this. Now, same color bar, same time, and the GFS in some places is 10 degrees cooler. So I went out and picked out St. Cloud, Minnesota, and I wanted to show you what you can do with the local forecast. So I just typed it in, hit submit, typed in St. Cloud, hit submit, and I want you to see when I compare the European to the GFS and the artificial intelligence, you can see their different line structure here. This is tomorrow morning. So the Euro's at 43.4, the AI model is at 39.4, and the GFS is at 36.9. So, roughly an 8 to 10 degree swing in the model to model runs. Now we do notice this, okay? We bottom out this weekend and then the temperatures rebound as we work our way through next week, and they tend to stay up here, but they're going to do a lot of this over the coming weeks and months as we slide into fall and just slowly work their way down. So I hope you find this useful. If you're just curious as you come to the site and you're like, just show me, what it looks like in total, come up to the 2-week summary. I just grab NOAA's forecast model output and then just give you highs and lows and take it all the way out there for 14 days in the form of cards. You just got your probability of rain, evapotranspiration, which is useful, and winds. And we better talk about these winds because they're going to get pretty strong here as we go forward. So have a look. This is the GFS forecast of maximum accumulated wind gusts. And as we play it out, the first front clears here, and the second trough sneaks its way in Friday. See there? That's Thursday into Friday. And as it sneaks in, really it's more of a Thursday feature. There it is, coming out of parts of Saskatchewan into Montana, the western side of the Dakotas. We're going to rip off some pretty good winds here. Now again, that is the second wave. The first front's already through. The deeper low is up in Ontario trying to make some snow here. And this second round of wind is going to be pretty strong. And we could expect wind gusts 30, 40, maybe 50 miles an hour at the strongest in this region. But while that's happening, I've got my eye on two other things too. One is this tropical system here. We'll come back to that in a second, where its moisture goes. And then I'm always watching this part of the world for tropical development in the models. And as I take you out there through September 10th, 11th, and 12th, there are more strong winds for the plains. But just on the corner of the image here, we see where the potential is for the next tropical system staying way out to open ocean. And that is a signal, right? Its position here to tell me where the Bermuda High is. It clearly must be off the page here, keeping this system curling into open ocean rather than driving it farther to the east. And we just need to continue to watch and observe that. So I'll come back to that in a second. I did want to let you know, just back on the main page, I've kind of zoomed in here on the radar data this morning. And what I want to see is how much are we going to get out of this as it comes through. So let's finish that narrative first before we come back to the tropics. High-res NAM model, this is about 6 a.m. this morning. It's forecast. You can see the position of the front, some of the snow that could be in parts of Ontario. Yes, the GFS way overdid this snow earlier in the week. But that front by 2 p.m. this afternoon is basically from this part of lower Michigan into Chicago, all the way over to the Quad Cities, stretching back here almost to Kansas City. And it's going to drive through, and I just hope we get the rain out of this that the model's predicting. Look at this. We need every ounce of this to come through Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio, getting down into Kentucky, Tennessee, the Mid-South, given how dry it's been. But that front's moving pretty quickly. There's nothing stalling it out. And as the second wave comes through with the stronger winds, here it is on Thursday at 10 a.m., watch it curl up over the Red River Valley, which needs the rain as well. And we're going to see if this can get pushed through again as another storm system that gets here by Thursday night into Wisconsin, dragging its front on the backside all the way down to Kansas. And I'll have a lot of hope in that system coming through as well. But as you note in the model, okay, the front goes all the way here, but major breakup in the middle of this, probably because the first front scoured out all the moisture, not allowing much to be left for lift in parts of Illinois, just as an example. So I put all that together, and we see the next 7 days on the WPC looks something like this. And I focused a lot here, but take a look. We've got something in the west. We've got to talk about this tropical system. How are we getting this extra precip down here in the states surrounding the Red River Valley? Are we going to really pull in this much moisture to Kentucky and Tennessee, which have been dry? And are we also going to see that storm system that's curling through here deliver the rainfall into the northeast, which needs it as well? So I want to switch models and switch color bars. I'm still working on these new maps. Just so you know why we're doing this, these new maps are half the size of my old ones, so it's going to load quicker. And we now have the hover feature in these and a color bar that most of you like better than my previous one. So as I play this out through Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week, notice the European model's got a little different solution than the WPC. And out there 10 days, I'll be honest with you, other than what this front might have, which gets into the northeast and then stretches right here through the Ohio River back to Kansas, where we've got a decent chance at grabbing an inch of rain. Most surrounding areas are quite dry. And we'll show you when this is coming through in just a few moments. Take note also that the European model is not nearly as aggressive on the tropical system delivering its moisture into the Four Corners states going forward. And as I play it out even farther, you don't even see a big hurricane or anything coming up, off the east coast of the U.S. That's a 15-day forecast from the European model. And you can come in here, parts of central Oklahoma. Thank goodness there was rains here recently, because we've got nothing in the forecast. And unfortunately, same thing for parts of Iowa, Missouri, northern Missouri. Getting back to parts of Kansas, even sections of Nebraska, which just received tremendous rainfall. But that little corridor in through there continues to be dry. So does the Mid-Atlantic, which has missed out on a lot of this rainfall as well. All right, so since I keep mentioning the tropics, Tomer Berg updated some of his images. These are my favorite, and all of the tropical websites that are out there. I would love to try to mimic what he has done, just to throw it on AgWeather. Brilliant scientist here, and 70% chance is what NOAA's given the next wave. But as you look out there, the models are not supportive. Over the next 10 days, the European model's only given that same wave, like a 30 to 50% chance of developing a tropical depression. And if you look at the newest forecasts of the tracks, Matt talked a lot about this yesterday. Man, the new model runs just put the squash on this and do not develop a bigger system. Now, this could change, but I'll be honest, when I look at this map, now knowing that this next tropical wave has lower probabilities, I think, of really getting going, I'm more interested in that color shading in the background from weathernerds.org. That is telling me where the high pressure is located. And that Bermuda High is over more toward the Azores than anything. And that's been a narrative I've tried to carry all week. So the East Pacific may be the bigger story with the tropics. And Lorena, I actually should have looked up the name of this, darn it, is our first system. And the second one, Kiko here, which is going toward Hawaii. That one's going to be very important for Hawaiian weather as we go forward. Now, to tell you what, let me show you how I get this. Tomer's website is arctic.som.ou, so he's at Oklahoma University.edu. T-Berg products, that's what it is. Or you can just Google Tomer Berg and you'll land on this. Go to the products tab, click on tropical cyclones, and he's updating this. He put out a tweet yesterday saying, update it, there it goes. Okay, let's go to Kiko real quick here because we're curious how close this is going to get to Hawaii. And we can go out here and look at what's called the Super Ensemble Guidance. And this just tells us based off of several models what the probability is of this getting, to Hawaii. And it does look pretty significant overall. If we look at the projected intensity of the storm as it approaches, now this is very common. They're strongest here and they weaken as they approach the islands. But we still get the winds. We can still definitely get the waves and the surf. So I just wanted to make folks aware of that. If you're watching me from Hawaii today or planning a vacation there very soon, we got a hurricane on the way. But back to the other system. Some of the forecast models in that super blend, which you see here, are trying to do this. And one of them is the GFS model. And if you go have a look at the GFS's total precipitation, again, using my old color bar here, what we see, watch right down here, is that storm system is expected to make a turn across the Baja into this part of Mexico, and it's trying to jump. That's Phoenix. That's the number I put over Phoenix, 1.39 inches. Now remember, the European, didn't have this, but it stretches into New Mexico and right up here into this part of Texas. And I had a great phone call with a guy yesterday that farms right here. His name's Ty. Ty, I'm still watching it. I'm trying to see if this is going to come through to bring in that rain into this part of the Texas Panhandle, which needs it big time after how dry we've been. But I'll just do this for you real quick. Let's play this out 15 days. And that is the GFS solution, looking quite similar to what the European model solution looked like elsewhere around the country, except this guy right here, okay? So with all that being said, let's finally look at this pattern. I'm going to do this pretty quickly. Deep troughs east. There's the reinforcing shot at colder air and the strong winds. Do you see where that came from? Right now, it's here, way up in the Canadian archipelago. Watch right there. And that trough is going to dig through Saskatchewan, grab the backside of the bigger low over Ontario, and just dive into that trough over the Great Lakes. Now, where are we in time? This is Saturday. We're only out 90 hours in the forecast. What happens after that point is that the Pacific block breaks, and we end up developing a trough by midweek next week, right here for Oregon and California. And that's the one I want to see how much rainfall we get in the Northwest, because they need it. We've got to break this pattern in the Northwest, which has been so hot. This is what's going to drive more heat back into the central U.S. as we go out there 10 days. So the week 2 pattern, see how wet we're starting to see the forecast show up in the northwest? That's when that trough starts to come in. But as we look at it overall, is there a drier stretch in through here that is just maintained? Some of the models clearly see that. So let's go have one more look at it. This is over the next 5 days. Chance at getting more than a ½ inch. Okay? So clearly, with our deeper low, front number 1, front number 2, we have some of that Pacific moisture from the tropical system trying to get in here in the ensemble. And we see better chances of rain where we've seen recently some very heavy rains in Texas. And again, look how far to the south the front has made it into Florida. Now, what I'm watching right now is just the west, because this is the next 5 days. If we add in another 5 days, do you see how the west is getting wetter? Chances are increasing. That's when that trough comes and settles in. It does not appear to revive the rainfall for southern and central California, but more for the chances in the Pacific Northwest as we work our way out there toward the middle of the month. All right, beyond this, I want to know if the models have captured any feature. What have Matt and I talked about for weeks? Oh, MJO movement. What's going on with the heat in the North Pacific versus the La Nina? And how's that going to translate into the North American weather pattern? Well, there's the trough we just talked about. And the models just take it as we go out there into week 3, which is that. And all that we get in terms of an ensemble signal from the extended European model forecast for the 3rd and then final week of September is this. So you want to know why we look at the weather forecast models that go out this far and just don't see much of a signal? Well, they wash out any major feature. And I'm going all the way out there to mid-October, and all I see is higher heights here. I can't even really discern much of a pattern out of this, which is frustrating because when you go out there and say, well, show me the 30-day anomalies, let's back this up. How about we just go from the 7th of September to the 7th of October? Okay, it's got that wave. There it is. That's bringing up the precip here. It's wetter there, which has been a pretty constant signal, but very dry here and very dry through this corridor. It has no idea if any tropical system is coming, but it's a forecast that's also shared right now by the GFS Extended. That's the same time period the GFS Extended forecast. A little drier, actually, in the west than the European is. And my concern is just this entire region. If you would like to see this whole area go over wet, you have to take those troughs that we're expecting to come in here and barrel them through. Or your other option is bring the Bermuda High back, have it set up there, have high pressure set up here, and in the middle put a stationary front. And then the Mississippi Basin and all of its tributaries have lots of rain. And right now, where's our trough? It's coming in the west in week 2. Where's the Bermuda High? Way over here. And that's why the models continue to show drier. My biggest concern is look at the Mississippi River. This morning, 2/3 of a foot below low stage. We're going to continue to monitor this, knowing that 1 year ago right now, it was already 6 feet below low stage on its way to 11 feet below low stage by the time we got to the end of September. Does this just continue to drop if the pattern stays drier? Because the soil moisture levels at 40 centimeters or 16 inches, that's the profile from 0 to 16 inches, show that much of the Ohio Basin, parts of the Missouri Basin, and the upper Mississippi are dry right now. Take a look at the Mid-Atlantic. The Northeast continues to be dry as well. So we're just looking at a pattern here that is not conducive to bringing rainfall. If it changes, we're going to definitely talk about it, but I don't see it. And I left one thing hanging in this forecast as I flipped over to precip, and that was the end of the temperature discussion. There's our next 5 days. Now watch the pattern develop cooler weather west as I go day 5 through 10. See it? That's the trough. We're still looking very warm in this part of Canada, but this cooler weather is going to back itself, or not back, but move itself to the east day 10 through 15, and some mild air starts to work its way back into the central U.S. But the pattern at this point is getting washed out in the models. So that leaves us with one last discussion here as we get into the longer range and look elsewhere around the world. I am curious, after we reach the peak in the hurricane season, this is the second half of it. It'll start around the 12th through the 15th. Look at this. Over this part of the Atlantic, right here in the tropics, the models are increasing the chances for rising motion. And if they do that, we know that this particular time of year, we're basically looking at this point forward, is very active for tropical systems. And it's interesting to look at the distribution of hurricanes. It's got like a slow ramp up, and then it just massively accelerates late August to September. This is historical. And it's got a bit more of a tail coming out of the back end, so it's skewed. It's not a perfect Gaussian distribution. What we know is that in September, these are three kind of, first 10 days, middle 10 days, and final 10 days of the month. It doesn't matter. You can have systems coming from anywhere. Gulf, Caribbean, Atlantic, that's all a possibility. So what we're going to have to watch during that time frame are the ocean temperatures supportive, which they are, and what does the wind shear do? And can we get systems to move farther to the east on these warm waters, or does the Bermuda High stay stalled out over closer to Africa and Europe than it is Bermuda? One thing to note here, though, this is nuts. Look how much colder the ocean temperatures have gotten here. And it's still hotter than average, don't get me wrong, but they've cooled off significantly, 3, 4, 5 degrees C just in the last week alone. And that is going to start to alter the North Pacific wave train. That's the jet stream that's leaving the Himalayas, born out of the heat coming out of the Indonesia. And is it going to start getting a bit more wavy? We have to answer those questions as we watch tropical systems over here, which I still don't have a real strong signal from. So what this leaves me with is trying to understand, what's going to happen in the other hemisphere down here in South America. And right now, I'll tell you, if you took this high pressure cell and moved it a bit farther to the north, and instead of these winds doing this, they were doing that, we would see full-on monsoonal moisture. As it stands, there's a front right in through here. This is in southern Brazil going through Uruguay. There's Paraguay down here. And we're just trying to see how much rainfall they're going to get. So the GFS, which is the model I've been siding with lately, look along that front as we work our way toward Friday. Heavy rains are expected, multiple rounds of it. We could flood out parts of Rio Grande do Sul with 4 to 5 inches of rain. But even out here 10 days, we don't see the full effect of the monsoon taking shape just yet, meaning that rapid early planting, we may just be on a holding pattern. Because even though the model says, hey, Mato Grosso do Sul is going to get some rain, where did all that rain come from? Day 10 through 15 in the models. And we just have to be aware that can sometimes be well overdone and not really represent what's going to be coming through. I'm still, again, siding with the GFS on its forecast. I think it's done better with this. And it's saying that September 7 to October 7 pattern is still drier, meaning that even though there's rain coming in now, they're expecting these areas to go over drier. Just for completeness, this is the European extended forecast. It's going after wetter. And we're just going to have to know if that really manifests itself by early October. October is a huge planting month in Brazil, so we'll keep an eye on it, all right? Okay, thanks for following along this morning. Just a lot of thoughts here, and we'll just talk again with you tomorrow morning. Thanks.